Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. The title is Pre-Designated Systems and Technological Forgetfulness. And in the subtitle I've written are different futures taking turns in the present. Taking turns doing what? So in this episode, I'm going to share a unique idea, certain ideas that arose to me. And I think it might be fascinating for the viewers. So pre-designated systems so, and then I've written technological forgetfulness. All right. So, a human being alive on Earth, wondering about the nature of reality. What can a human being wonder about even? Questions that are important to ask, and questions, there are some questions, if we don't ask, it's as if we've never lived. So, pretty much in this episode, I need to explain these three things. All right. So, in order for me to explain these ideas and how I came to them, bear with me, dear viewers. Here, let me see. So, all right. So, when it comes to the idea of pre-designated systems, pretty much there's a curiosity about the idea of predestination, the idea of something being determined beforehand. Now, if you want to know about a pre-designated system, it could be like any game that has been made Like imagine the old school arcade games. It's pretty much a closed system, because if the system was an open system, it would constantly change, so we wouldn't be capable to pre-designate it. Okay? Pre-designated systems, what I'm referring to is that, what if, like, I'll give you an example. For example, the red blood cells in your veins, imagine they became conscious like people. They created their own language, mathematics, sciences, technologies, and in some sense they wanted to understand what's the destiny of their world. Those red blood cells may not be convinced that the whole biological system is under an organizational pattern, is under a sort of instruction, organized instruction. The red blood cells are just in the veins, and they're like, yo, is this life? Is there more? They don't realize that the whole thing is a greater intelligent organized activity, right? And the greatest clue that human beings have about this world is that it's organized. I can say this comfortably now as a philosopher, but, as a human being running 31 laps around the sun, I look at this world, and to me, it's as if before I got here, it was designed. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, imagine a real estate agent. They go and set up the house, set up the showcase, make the two tables appear as beds, the foldable tables, just for the showing. And it's like, to me, it feels like I've entered a system as a conscious, just being born into this world. I feel I've entered a system where before I entered the room, the system was organized. Do you know what I'm saying? It's as if we've bought a pre-made video game. Do you know, being born on Earth is literally like a video game that you didn't have to buy. You just were born in. Do you know? Some video games you buy, some video games you're born through. It's like, how do I purchase, a three-dimensional video game, where I'm made of the periodic table and all of this? It's like, easy, man. Just forget you're eternal. So anyways, this idea of a pre-designated system, this idea of determinism, we see this, for example, not just in that abstract example of the conscious blood cells, but I would say more in the sense of like a seed. When you put a seed in the soil, the potential of the seed is like a pre-designated system, right? Like me being able to speak in this way, this format, how I'm existing right now, this was a pre-designated system in accordance to my DNA. Even though there were unknown variables and unknown decisions, you see, it's so fascinating. This world is like this meaningless place, and then the stuff in it over a long time becomes organized and becomes a creator of its own meaning. And then it wonders if its own creation of meaning is the only meaning, right? There can be an argument that human beings do not know if they are experiencing an actual world or they are in their minds. This is suggesting what is the true nature of reality. We call it existence. We think existence means matter, but you look at the atom, and 99.9% of it is empty. There's a lot of empty space holding shape in this world. And people will be like, Mr.Within, in different talks you've said the soul is like space. So to me, it's kind of like, how would I say it? It's like I've entered somewhere. And a very fascinating metaphor, I've heard this from religious circles, okay, from religious people, where somebody asked, not just religious, even spiritual people you can say, but somebody was asked, what do you think's going to happen after this life? And the person gave such a unique answer. The person gave this answer that before this life, I was in the womb, And then the child emerged from what appeared as a closed system. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying that it seems like this consciousness in this universal sector is looping through novelty. Do you know? Like, because, you know, when you think about space and the purpose of movement in space, it is so bizarre. It's one of the hardest things, actually. Alan Watts said if two spheres are spinning around each other in a vacuum, which sphere is spinning around which? In emptiness is the end of knowledge. Or some would consider the beginning. And we human beings are entertaining so many ideas that are not physical. Do you know? I see the atheist, you know, shout at the, break the theist spirit. You see these atheist-theist debates, you know, anybody who knows who Christopher Hitchens is, you know, it's like seeing a bulldozer destroy like a forest, you know. But anyways, you know, the atheistic position is, why should I believe in an invisible idea, right? But how many ideas are invisible that we're believing in? We're believing in space, freaking invisible. We're believing in time, freaking invisible, you know? We believe in hope, invisible. We believe in the future, invisible. We believe in our past memories, they're done, the past finished, it's invisible. So we are literally like this hilarious thing where in our outer realms we're like, yo, we're physical beings, but I would give it a ratio where I actually think maybe give it 60 to 80% of the human life is being lived as an abstract event. We are fictionally living. It's like 80% fiction, 20% non-fiction. Because the non-fiction is visible, we're like, yo, that's it. We saw a shape and that was enough. But was it? So a pre-designated system is a system where by its design, its ending is defined. A system that its ending defines its beginning. That means if you're in a world where there's destiny, you could try whatever you like, but what is meant to happen will happen. For example, that's the religious attitude. Do you know? In religion, there's a very certain monotheistic religions, there's a very interesting phrase. Where the phrase says something in the lines of like, anything bad that happens to the human being is from the human being. Anything good that happens to the human being is from God. And I thought, like, what a strange statement. How would one even process such a statement? And the only answer is that if it's a different frequency, it's a different state. That means good things happening in life are a different state of being. So it's a different dimension. So what does that mean? Imagine Earth is a free-for-all and creatures behind their eyes are cultivating states of mind, and then they're animating as individuals with personalities and with a sort of persona, acknowledging the regulation, the chessboard of the reality. Do you know? For me, the biggest catalyst in my, I shouldn't say catalyst, the biggest inspiration in my life was a moment, I'll never forget this moment, guys. It was the most incredible feeling I had in my life, right? I would say until 2000, I think this is before 2013, but there was a moment where I realized that the knowledge that I was explained, the way I was explained the idea of knowledge as a kid in the educational system, the way people around me had given a value for knowledge, it was as if it was such an, like, you know how people have out-of-body experiences? I've had out-of-mental context experiences. Okay? And it was as if for a second my mind asked one of the most incredible questions ever. It asked, what if nobody knows? What if no human being knows what's going on here? When that feeling hits you, do you know what I'm saying? If you feel like sometimes I think about like how the world perceives what I'm doing here, and the way I perceive it, it's as if 8 billion human beings on a giant boat in unknown waters. We don't even know what the name of the ocean is. Unknown waters. And one part of the boat has started sinking, and other part of the boat has no idea it's sinking. One part of the boat thinks everything's perfect, other part of the boat is freaking out. And so this is where you become not the captain of your ship, but you become a captain of the world that you want to keep. We have not come here to just be human beings. We have come here to assist humanity. That means I would say there's pretty much two phases to life. It's like one phase of life is like, all right, kiddo, you've entered manifestation, here's your karma. And you're like, yo, world, stop throwing karma at me. What did I do to you? And then the logo says, what did you do to yourself? Why are you here? How can we be confident as a being if we don't know where we are as a being? We're living at a time where people are saying, yo, I got a mind, or they look at others and they're like, yo, that person's out of their mind, and others are like, yo, I am of sound mind. But what is the mind? We are acting. We're freaking acting. The species is subjectively acting like it knows what's objectively going on, but it doesn't. It's just in a certain boundary. Do you know what I'm saying? It's as if the human intellect is king, but a king of a domain, a dominion. There was this anime, I forget the term. There was this anime, maybe somebody remembers it and can tell me. There was this anime, what was it called? It was called Jujutsu Kaisen. It was a messed up anime, very metaphysical and a bit dark. But in this fictional universe, in this Japanese story made into a show, they depicted a character that had an ability to create a dimension and take other beings into this dimension. Now this idea, even though it was revealed in a Japanese show, I had come across this in Buddhism. There's a branch of Buddhism called Mahayana Buddhism. And there was a very unique Buddhic figure that literally decided to create a hotel for enlightened people, but instead of a hotel, it was a dimension. The dude created the Pure Lands. Do you know, just like, imagine you're like driving in this street and there's no buildings, nothing, and suddenly you see this like palace level hotel or some shit, Excuse my language. So a pre-designated system suggests that the outcome is already known. So you plant a seed, you don't know what kind of oak tree it's going to be, but it's an oak seed. Do you know? So we know that there is a seed here. We don't know what kind of manifestation this seed has. We know that there is a species, 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere, and think about what kind of an advanced being you have to be to become responsible for your species in the void. It's an honorable. It's the honor we're missing. Back in the day, there were exceptional warriors. Right nowadays, we have people talking about being a warrior, but it's nonsense. Nowadays, the warriors are like entertainers. Back in the day, the warriors understood that in some sense, life was intense, had savage intensities, and how you endured through these savage intensities was by, in some sense, energizing yourself with honor, with a proud presence. It's as if when the lion knows what it is and knows it can roar and roars, that's when all the animals in the environment are like, holy shit, okay, readjust. So that's it about pre-designated systems. For example, a seed is pre-designated to be a tree, even though we do not know how the tree will exactly look like. We know what category of tree will arise from the human being. Excuse me, from the seed. What am I saying? From the seed. So that's about the pre-designated systems, okay? Technological forgetfulness, the viewers don't know, I write. You know, if somebody was like, Mr. Within, who are you? I'd say I'm a writer. My whole life, that's been, you know, one of the most powerful tools of my expression. And people don't know this. When you write, it's like sculpting a sculpture. Do you know? When you speak, it's like a parkour, like doing parkour. It's like in your mind is doing parkour when you rhythmically speak. But anyways, technological forgetfulness. All right. To continue. All right, technological forgetfulness. This one's gonna blow people. You know, it's gonna blow them away. What I'm gonna say here. All right, so technological forgetfulness. This is a very interesting idea. Why? Because we can't imagine it. Right now, we're a species, you know, at the pioneering phase of the cyberspace era. And so technology is like our coolest gadget. It's like the next toy. It's like where everybody is spending more and more of their time. Do you know something in nature translated adulthood to massive information processing? And technology is an assistance to massive information processing. Because you got to look at this life and be like, yo, it's not just a physical event. It's not like this only physical stuff is happening here. And it's as if wondering, you know, if you're someone who has heard the term smart, you've heard, you know, some people say, yo, that person's smart, or that girl is smart. Oh my God. Do you know? Let me tell you what smart is. Smart is who has the most accurate context of reality in the moment. That is what smart is. It's a state. It's a recognition that there is no 100% knower. You know, I've seen certain interviewers, I've seen certain people like interview others, and they have a sort of fear in their mind. Why? Because they think that other moments in this life can justify all the moments in this life. It's impossible. You know, we have come into this world, you know, asking questions, developing language, but at the same time, its meaning is right in front of us. Do you know? The meaning of life is to realize that the past has the future to learn from. We as a species did one of the most genius things ever. Do you understand? Like, our species is so smart that it opened its eyes, saw a world that was super freaking meaningless, and from this meaninglessness, it started to lie to itself so it can live. That means the language is one of the most necessary, important lies on earth. But it's a lie. What it means is it's hollow. What does that mean? That means if we were to truly live in the actual world, we would not be human beings. We would be unknown beings. And some people they spend their life on this planet as an unknown state. When you're an unknown state, you witness karma. You don't have karma usually when you're an unknown being. But if you have a sort of belief that you are a known being, then of course the karma is it's based on how you have held yourself, what you have chosen. There was a scene in the movie Gladiator where that guy Maximus, before the first game ever, they take these gladiators, these slaves of Rome back in the day, and they're like, yo, choose your weapon before you go and die as entertainment. And so in the movie Gladiator, the guy chooses a mask and a sword and a shield, I think. Or no, at the beginning, the first scene, they give him spears and a shield, so he chooses to wear a mask. Okay? But what I'm saying is life is kind of like this. You get to choose how you enter your future. You may not be able to choose your future, but you choose the quality of how it happens. That means we human beings are so selfish that they think their karma is their karma. Like somebody does something and a bad outcome happens and they're like, yo, I'm unlucky. What's wrong with my karma? Should I start calling karma names? Like, is karma a female dog, or is there why is this happening to me, the person may say. But this is the selfishness of the ego that thinks that truth has to be where it is. You see, religion shares one of the most incredible stories. I'm a person who, for me, literature, writing is fascinating. Writing is incredible, right? And to me, from the perspective of someone who one day I hope to have the resources to even create a museum of language, the museum of the greatest sentences and greatest texts ever, the museum of the greatest ideas in the world, I hope one day, I have a feeling it will happen. But anyways, the idea that I had this vision. Oh man, where was I going with this? Anyways. My dear humanity, we have not been called into manifestation just to stand around. And this idleness, in the centuries to come, the generations will awaken. And what will happen is that they will be inspired by their ancestors. They will not be judged by their ancestors. And the only way we can achieve this as a species, as one of the only ways, at least I have fathomed, is that I want you to realize that the next chapter of human history is collective living. What does that mean? We were creatures that were separate. We were in the forest. We weren't established in tribes. Then we got into tribes. Right now, these tribes are globalizing through the internet, but the whole suggestion is that one mind, it's as if like worlds are merging. Human minds are like drops of water. In the future, these drops of water on a windshield, they're all gonna it's gonna become a pond. And people think the purpose of existence is physical. What if materialism has an immaterial purpose? What if the reason we are physical beings is so we can have a contrast to actually notice we're non-physical beings? In what other way? Where else can we truly wonder about the nature of reality? We are on the great stage. It's as if we have been pushed on a stage and 8 billion creatures have been given microphones, right? And they're all staring at the cosmos and the universe, which is the audience. And Mr. Within is like, DJ, run the beat, spin the beat, Spin that shit. You see, guys, I would say, my father, actual father in this life, he was a manager, CEO of a company in Iran. And a man with an MBA and I remember, his ability to manage environments and new situations. And I think about life and this world, and it's all about managing what we are in the presence of what we will be. You see, there has come moments where I have I've gotten upset, and then I've dismantled how I've been upset. I've I've looked at my here's my view. I look at my life and I'm like, okay, am I suffering? If the answer is yes, I'm like, okay, how am I suffering? And then I'm like, okay, am I physically suffering? It's like, okay, maybe the answer is yes. So the physical solution regard. But what if the answer is no? What if my suffering is non-physical? What if I'm suffering because I have regret? What if I have suffering because I have desire? What if I have suffering because I'm uncomfortable? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it could you got to designate and to see that is your emotion inspired out of an abstract event in your awareness, or is it inspired out of a real event? When it comes to the real event, I'm just a human being existing. When it comes to my physical existence, I'm trying. I made it a sort of internal New Year's resolution that in 2023 I'm gonna try to force myself, to go into society and see what happens. And there's always a risk, right? Anything you do, there's a risk. It's like, will the people of the world love you or hate you? Will they allow you or deny you? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like there's 8 billion creatures here, and I'm wondering, and you know what it is for me? I'm like, regardless of the disorganization, just the idea of an organized, advanced, incredibly efficient humanity, advanced humanity that has shifted its morality from people being good and evil to everything being perceived as inefficient and efficient decisions in accordance to all the most aggregate sum of dimensions considered. Do you understand? We are reaching a time where the human attention, where this consciousness that is experiencing itself through the human framework, this awareness, is reaching the sophistication that it is treating its personality like a secondary body. And then the mystery of who has been living this life comes into your attention. For me, it happened where I was like, wait a minute, how is it that every day I wake up and I feel I'm still the same old me, but I don't have the same body, the same thoughts, the same view? Do you understand? So I was like, how is it that I physically changed, psychologically changed, but how is it I still feel the same? And that was the clue. That was, I guess, where I found one of the first strings to pull about, the soul. It was one of the biggest clues. Excuse me. To me, the fact that there has been an awareness of my life, regardless of how I have changed, was the clue that there is something else here. Now, how would I connect this to technological forgetfulness? So, one idea would be, I'll give you an example here. An example of technological forgetfulness, it's like we don't know how they built. So I guess this is a view from the past, okay? We don't know how they built the pyramids and moved all that stone, Okay, this would be a sort of technological forgetfulness, as if the pyramids are indirectly pointing to a lost technology. That means the wonder of the pyramids is not just their shape and appearance and architecture, it's that what sort of mind space initiated such a structure. So we have a view of it from the past, and I would come here and say there's a view of it from the future. Okay, and the future would be the present is right now being introduced to technology, but imagine, right, in the far future suddenly one day there was a power outage, or imagine something happened and all technology was lost. Okay, or in my science fiction I've taken it to such a next level, but I'll say it like this. I'll give you an example. Imagine, I'll give a prediction. Imagine, okay, no, I'm not going to give a prediction in case it's shaping. I'll say it this way. Imagine in a parallel universe of Earth, they had similar progress to our parallel universe of Earth, this Earth, let's say the Earth we're in. And what I'm trying to say is, imagine we became technological entities in like a couple thousand years in a parallel universe version of Earth. Imagine the species in that parallel universe became all technological entities. And then these technological entities decided that they no longer wanted to be technological entities, and they got rid of all their technology and in some sense made themselves forget, do you know what they are? And imagine a year afterwards, a sort of genetical program is left out of all this technological eons of technological progress, and it turns into a genetical program, and so like a genetical seed, as if technology managed to create an organism, like the genetical seed. I don't know how to say it, but it's an idea. Just see the reality of it in accordance to the geometry of the structure of the idea. So I'm saying, imagine, right? We became robots in the future in this parallel universe of Earth, and then as robots we decided to become natural again. We ended up becoming a natural program, and now imagine thousands of years passed by, right, and we ended up evolving as human beings, and instead of having, for example, like basic human functions, imagine we could have an ability to restore songs like a playlist in our mind. And we would be like, yo, how is the organism doing this? And what it is that the world is actually like two worlds taking turns, do you know? I feel even if all human technology is lost, the whole thing repeats. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like the Earth can't build the most advanced civilization yet, so it kept on trying until this humanity arrived. The humanity with the potential. We're not just any civilization out of all the civilizations that have lived on Earth. We are the lucky civilization, the glowing civilization, the golden civilization. Do you know? What does this mean? That means the destiny of the human species, because creatures on this planet displayed love. That's it. Because human intelligence displayed gentleness and discussion, it opened itself up to a future where all the creatures communicating on this planet are actually, how can I tell you, we have created a karma for the Earth and a karma for the human species that we're going to be communicated to by higher dimensions. Why? Because we're communicating like crazy in this dimension. What it means is we have displayed the required intelligence of an eternal continuity. So what it means is, like, this might sound hilarious, but like an eternal being is trying to temporarily remember itself. But as an eternal being, you cannot have a memory, because memories individualize you as a shape. A memory is for a self, for some position. So anyways, technological forgetfulness would be this idea that we forgot technology and then we suddenly got inklings of it. You're like, yo, can you imagine, like people in the future, like archaeologists millions of years from now, they're digging up somewhere and they find an iPod, right? And they somehow find a way to make the iPod work, and they listen to like Skrillex, and they're like, yo, these human beings were crazy. What were they listening to? I think the first thing we gotta do if aliens land on Earth is to get like the greatest DJs on Earth, and we'd be like, yo, the fate of humanity lies in how good these DJs create music, But let me tell you something fascinating. There is an invisible other and there's a visible other. And the visible other and the invisible other know about each other. But the human consciousness that has not found, in some sense, the visible other, how would I say it? It's like I feel that if there were extraterrestrial audiences scanning the human species, they are waiting for us to remember our collective presence, so that when they enter our space, we don't get possessed by them automatically. Why? Because it's the nature of allure. Like human beings on Earth, like you take an average man and you put an incredibly beautiful woman in front of him, and the guy could be doing calculus, and for a moment he's like, huh? Do you know what I'm saying? So we get optically mesmerized by our environment. So if something shiny lands from the sky, like we're all gonna freak out or something, or we're gonna like go to therapy and we'll be like, yeah, man. It's like imagine the therapist in the future, like after extraterrestrials have landed down, and then diplomatically, and they're like, yo, and then the person goes, imagine, to a therapist in the future, and the therapist is like, tell me about your problems, dear human being, and the guy's like, man, I don't know, I was taking my dog for a walk in the park, and suddenly this glowing being appeared out of nowhere, or like slowly, descended from the sky, onto the ground and started walking casually. Like an alien just slowly like hover landed, in a park and started walking. This guy, imagine this caused trauma for him. Why? Because he didn't know how to process that which is beyond its limitations. And potential and talent, right? If you imagine you're someone who's a talent scout, what do you scout for? Do you know? You scout for those who can move in their own worlds. Because that's what talent is. Talent is like, excuse me, but this is how I think true talent is. Talent is like telling the whole world, shut up, and then you, for the first time, trusting something that's from you. Do you see? That means talent arises when somebody is fascinated to explore the depths of something. And then when they are challenged, they have more familiarity with it. And people are like, yo, this guy's talented, People are never their appearances. Why? Because they can't be. We're not nouns. We are verbs. We're verbs disguising ourselves as a noun. When I'm tired, the way I communicate, it's like the noun is lesser quality. Do you know? Like I've noticed, the more tired I become, the easier it is for me to be selfless. That means that you could create this argument that if the whole human species was tired, like, crime rates would go down, It's like, yo, why isn't there crime? Because people are too tired to go do crime, But what I want is really greatness, guys. It's I want it for the species, not for individuals. Individuals come and go. We're like 100 years of a useful experience. Do you know what it is? I feel there is something more important than me here in this world. And when I say something more important than me, I don't mean just my ego. I mean, like, I am just the eyes of a world. You know, it took me a while to come into terms with this, to be like, holy shit, you know, there's a tree existing right there, you know, that's an object, and holy shit, my body's existing here, I'm an object. And so the only difference is that I'm noticing I'm an object. And that is the, you know, what the veil between the animate and the inanimate. So here when I'm talking about the future, I'm saying like they forget current technology we are the eyes of the universe. What else can we be? What else can consciousness be? What are we all here for? Are we here for ourselves? Are we here to enjoy our lives? Or could the human species be so smart, so advanced that it builds a system, decides upon an outlook on the world where we are like, yo, we're smart enough to live and to have an individual victory and collective victory. So we want win-win in all dimensions. And somebody would be like, Mr. Within, what about the battles of good and evil? You're trying to bring in an advanced civilization beyond duality, but what about good and evil and their endless war? And I would say, pause the video game. Pause the video game until we have the visions of an advanced humanity. Do you know, there was someone in history known as Rishi Vyasa. Rishi Vyasa was such an incredible human being. That not only did he write 18 books on leaves called the Puranas, dedicated for the enlightenment of the current society, but there's this legendary story about Rishi Vyasa that Rishi Vyasa writes these 18 books on leaves following his intuition, and he feels unfulfilled. He feels like something is still incomplete. And as the story goes, an angel appears to Rishi Vyasa. I think in the book it said an angel appears through human form to Rishi Vyasa and tells Rishi Vyasa, you will not feel complete as a being until you write about your devotion, your love for truth. Your devotion for truth. The greatest artworks, the greatest productions come from this feeling. There is no greater muse than truth. It is the ultimate inspiration of intelligence in a realm. To know itself, beyond itself, as itself. Which means collective presence over individual personality. So they forget current technology and feel a technological nostalgia. Technological nostalgia. I'm a human being who, in my inner realms, I've had so many visions of what future advanced civilizations could look like, that at some point, when I look at this world now, to me it's a bit slightly dull. When I look at buildings all being rectangular, I'm like, yo man, architects are so uncreative. You know? It's like we're freaking playing Lego on Earth, you know? It's like, in the future, you know, they might pass a law that it's like illegal to create a building that doesn't look like contemporary art. Imagine you can't create a building with the platonic solids, or if you see a square building, all square buildings are like government buildings, you know. Imagine all sphere buildings are like all religious buildings, you know. Whatever, but anyways. So the idea of the pre-designated system and the idea of a technological forgetfulness, and this idea that what if this world is destined to endlessly shift between nature and the unnatural. Because we can't ignore, like, we as a species started to behave a bit unnatural. Now some people say this is because of the neocortex. I would say it's not just that. It's like our species compared to other species in history had an energy drink. You know, can you imagine a time traveler? Imagine we create a time travel machine right now and we buy a package of Red Bull and we go back to the era of, like, you know, the caveman or like some era in history back in the day, and we just throw a bunch of Red Bulls on the grass, and imagine like medieval knights find Red Bull and they, like, you know, defend their kingdom or something. I think I've created the greatest Red Bull commercial ever, but, you know, Red Bull, reach out to me, you know. We'll work something out. The last thing I've written here is, are different futures taking turns in the present? This is a suggestion that the past was singular, present is dual, future is multidimensional. Very future, we'll give it a valuation of 0. And the very past, the far past here, the far past will be like, okay, that equals to 0 too. Or we don't know, this could be infinity as well. But anyways, I mean, it depends on the viewers, you know. My view on the future is that I realize, okay, what's my connection? Like, how am I accessing the future? And I'm like, oh yeah, my mind is being my future. So what the future is, how it is most likely received by most human beings, is that it is in behind your eyes you see probabilities, and you're waiting to see if the follow-up of the real event, pretty much abstract preparation for real outcome. The future, like, if it, like, imagine you were living in a world where anything you expected in the future happened. Let's say you saw a future where you were a millionaire or a billionaire, and suddenly like reality was a reality machine or something. And imagine, like, suddenly, you know, you experienced that, and then suddenly you wanted to be an Olympian, you know, Olympic athlete, and suddenly you shifted and became that. So if instantaneously all our inner realms were gratified, we'd stop using it. That means the fact that we don't know what's going to happen is giving a purpose to us using our minds to figure out what will happen. The future is giving purpose to our intelligence. Because if we became everything we thought, we'd be a shape-shifting entity. The mind is really like a shape-shifting phenomena, shape-shifting technology. But the body, it's slowly shape-shifting, as you grow. So when it comes to our different futures taking turns in the present, at the beginning I said, what do I mean by taking turns of what? I would say that I gave a talk called Ghost of Civilizations Past. And it's pretty much, I have this idea it's another sense that if the future is a collective timelessness, many different types of future can access now. There's many different philosophies even on the concept of what an extraterrestrial is. Some people think it's like human beings from another parallel universe. Some people think it's the collective psyche of the species, so it's pretty much the imagination of the species, or the imagination of like the planet or something. I would say it's pretty much different probabilities. So it would be saying, like, when I say our different futures taking turns in the present, I'm a being existing in the present, and my mind is probabilizing different types of humanity, the different types of civilizations that are possible. In my inner realms, I saw a civilization where we found a way to create giant sequoia trees the size of skyscrapers, and we planted giant trees everywhere pretty much. Imagine a bunch of like skyscraper trees was creating enough like oxygen, that it didn't matter if we got rid of forests or not, That would be genius, no? If we could pull that off. Living in giant trees, People, a lot of this stuff I've explained in my sci-fi. So now to the talk. I'm gonna close the window capture. Okay, there we go. What else can I say? Every person is granted with an opportunity to experience themselves for the first time ever. And in this life, when you're young, you think others are more important. Or at first, when you're really young, you think you're very important. Then when I would say you go into your teenage years, you start noticing others are being more important. And life is fascinating because the roles that we are to fulfill in the future, we have seen them be fulfilled in the past. A lot of what human beings are doing, like there has been enough human beings that have lived life that AI in the future is just going to archive probably all the information of all of our lives and come up with an incredible way to live. Where it's to the day, to the second, to the hour, it's going to tell you. AI is going to be like, okay, in the morning, do this for your body, for your DNA type and whatnot. The world is a place where energy can learn from its shape. And so the shape of life is important, but to know what has been looking through your eyes, perhaps you require to notice that you have never been your ideas, you have never been your name, you have not even been your memories, and in actuality you are standing as an attributeless witness in every moment before your free will presents you with the options of your character. And so the human species requires to cultivate an ability to care for more than its beliefs, because the beliefs are based on what is known. And to believe in the unknown is to be an explorer of novel dimensions. And so what sort of humanity do we want? That means you, oh human being listening now, when you sleep at night, what sort of species, when you're sleeping, what sort of species do you want to be in the world? Do you know? That means, what is that feeling when we close our eyes? Right? And we may be oblivious, we may not care about what's going on the planet, but there will come a day where we will not be able to sleep well until an advanced humanity has arrived. Do you know what I'm saying? In an advanced civilization, everybody will be energized because there's too many victories. That means you turn on the news, advancements in this dimension, in that dimension. Pretty much it's going to turn. An advanced civilization is like an eternal victory that's being celebrated through temporary phases. Because why else would we appear and then disappear? It is because we are performers on a stage. And so the world is waiting for who you have always been. An unbelievably multidimensional beauty. You know, there's a beauty that is not shaped. You look at someone, you're like, all right, you know, there's physical beauty there. You look at their mind, you're like, okay, sure, there's mental beauty there. You know, this person has noticed the beautiful, you know. But then there are moments where you see, like, I don't know why. I don't know if this is something I bring with myself here, or something authorized for the nature of the work I'm doing here, or just something that's just natural to me. But I have, as a child, been able to notice the invisible buildup of karma before it happens. What I mean by this is I can see how the moment moves sometimes. And the reason I can see how the moment moves is because I have no opinion. You know, I realized in my youth, all the problems that like things that became problems for me were things that I was so convinced of my opinion. Like, it hadn't occurred to me that I was a human being born in a world that I didn't know, much more ancient than me, and I thought I knew as a kid. As a young kid, I had the ego, like I know better, you know. And life was like, yeah. And really what it is that we are living for the potential of something. All human beings, you're either living for the potential of yourself, you're living for the potential of others, or you're living for the potential of your world. And if you're smart, you live for the potential of your world, which includes the other two. So why do you think I keep saying an advanced civilization? Because the idea of the advanced civilization is the greatest common denominator that humanity has after the invisible and inconceivable. After the unknown, the advanced civilization is the most incredible idea. It is literally why we're living, why we're experiencing this basic life. Right? We're experiencing this basic life because we're attending. We're literally curating, or no, what's the term? We are preparing this world for the future, whether we know it or not. Now we can choose to consciously do it. And there's different beings, you know, like a human being lives on this earth, and let's say throughout their whole lifetime, they, like from their birth to their death, let's say they lived 100 years, that life, in that lifetime, they only met physical beings, imagine. That means they were on this earth and they only saw physical stuff, nothing else. Imagine there's another being, another human being. This human being enters this life, not only sees physical stuff, but also sees how subjects are moving objects in this reality. And then begins to realize how subjects in the inner realms can become real. That means this is what they don't tell you. What you concentrate on over time becomes real, right? And I think this is something that, deep down men have known when it's come to pretty much what it is where you are for a long time, you have to make decisions about. And in order for people, because people have this thing where they're like, I'm going to trust my world, they decide to trust their space. Somehow, there is this urge in the human being to want to exist in other minds other than its own. I think it's a built-in urge. It's so evolutionary, it's so deep within the human being that it's as if it's not enough if one person just knows something. Like, it wasn't enough for explorers to just explore and find a new place. They had to come back and share it. And there's this incredible Sufi story. This Sufi story is about these three friends back in the day. The stories from like 1,000 years ago in some Persian village. And these dervishes, these Sufis, they're these three Sufi friends. Think of it in their late 20s. And they suddenly one day when they're hanging out, they notice a giant wall, a random giant wall has appeared at the edge of their town. Curious, these three dervish friends, these Sufi friends, all right. All right. These three Sufi friends at the edge of town find a wall. They go up to the wall and they start walking beside it, and they're like, yo, what is this wall? Where did it come from? And suddenly one of the three friends notices that there's a ladder up ahead, this giant ladder taking them up the wall. And so one of the friends is like, yo, you guys hold the ladder, I'm gonna climb and I'm gonna see what's on the other side of the wall. So this guy climbs the ladder, and the moment he gets to the top, the two friends are from the bottom of the wall watching. The guy gets to the top and he sees something so unbelievable, he just jumps to the other side. And then the two friends look at each other and they're like, what just happened? And so now one of the friends holds the ladder and the other friend climbs up and goes up the ladder, goes up the wall. The second friend goes up the wall and he finally sees what the first person sees. The first friend saw. And he sees that on the other side of the wall is literally paradise. It's literally a heavenly dimension. It's like there's heaven on the other side of this wall. Okay? And so the second friend, before jumping in, he just looks down at the third friend and he says, there's heaven up here, man. It's heaven. It's like the final destination. It's on the other side of this wall. The finale. And so this person's like, what? Heaven's on the other side of the wall? And the second friend jumps in. And the third friend is alone. And he understands that if he is to go and seek this truth, he has to climb alone. And there's nobody holding the ladder for him. So with a faith in the invisible potential of the moment's future, he climbs this ladder and gets to the top. And his eyes witness heaven.
he sees paradise. And in that moment, every part of him is telling him, jump, jump, it's heaven, it's done. You'll be done with this place. It's like you've reached the finale. And right before this guy jumps, suddenly he sees his heart smiling. And he says, oh my God, there is heaven up here. The whole world should know. And he climbs down the ladder alone, but this time fearless, because now he's armed with the truth. And what the truth is that there is a state of being that surpasses conceptual expectation. That means this is the classification of intelligent beings if there was an interdimensional system. Those beings that are conditionally empowered, powered up, sourced, and those beings who are unconditionally sourced. The beings that discover their unconditional source, they're untouchable and they're free pretty much till the end of time, right? Those beings who are still a class of creature, who they still have a conditional, they need a conditional world to know that they're unconditional. They need a condition to know that truth is unconditional. To be honest, I am a man that has discovered that not only the world is unknown at its edge, but so is the self. And so the hypothesis, like the simulation hypothesis, this is a suggestion that man is occupied with the artificial in the presence of the original. And so the biggest secret to life is realizing the only way, like if, let's say you're a person raised in a religious tradition and you're like, how can God know everything that is going on in the world? And the answer is because God is watching from a single moment, the single moment where all moments have emerged from. It's literally genius. It's like an inventor building a bunch of androids and then making sure that their software and their hardware have different continuity points. So for example, imagine somebody, let's say there's an inventor who wants to create like 10 androids with different personalities. Okay, so this guy programs these different androids with different personalities, and imagine a car like hits these androids and destroys their bodies, but because the inventor has a backup saved memory, has a backup system, has saved their software on in another dimension, right? So mankind will never lose. It doesn't matter how many times your body changes. What is it that is looking through? Because we have reached the era of advanced communication. We have reached that point in history where one by one the advanced communicators will reveal themselves. It's as if, let me tell you what it is. Oh, I see it in my inner realms. I see it happen in the future, where genius will no longer be shy, where the innocence of nature will accept benevolence and become the most powerful outer realm archetype. There are beings who I would say, or think of it this way, in the presence of truth, no rejection stands unjudged. So what it means is that like, you know, like, this is so, like, sometimes when I give these talks, I'm trying to, I'm speaking to the whole species and the whole universal sector, by the way. All conscious beings in this universal sector. I don't care if you're a bird listening to this talk, or if you're a human being, or if you're the invisible eyes, you know, thinking the clouds are hiding you, you know. It's like imagine billions of years, and we've been living, we are lions that have put on wool on our head, and we've been thinking we're sheep. And the advanced civilization is like, one by one, you begin to hear the roars of the advanced communicators. And what this means is, I've envisioned this so deeply. Like, look at this right now. We have a bunch of doctors back in the day, right? And they were like, yo, we're healing people, let's create a hospital, right? In the future, there's going to be advanced communication stations everywhere. There's going to accompany, as a civil servant, there's going to be an advanced communicator accompanying every public servant. Paramedic, police officer, fireman, there's going to be an advanced communicator there to assist the communication of reality between these two different beings. What that means is, mankind, as he becomes intelligence, he creates backup systems, which is another way of saying the soul is not alone. You know, it's like the backup system of God was like the concept of the angels, you know. This is very important in religion. You know, religion is really not for a physical being. You know, it's not a book for a physical entity. It's a book for a being that doesn't know, that has the unknown, they have truly felt the unknown. Because when you truly feel the unknown, you suddenly realize the deep psychological fear that everybody is acting like they don't have, about how bizarre existence actually is. Okay? We live, this is my understanding of it. The most advanced beings in whatever world, doesn't matter, this parallel reality, this universal sector, whatever. Every conscious being has been given the requirement for not ideological liberation, but for transcendental remembrance. And so there hasn't been human beings casually talking about transcendence. And the reason is why? Because we have not found a way of capably connecting it to the outer realms. But the way Mr. Within is going about this is I've designed something, I call it Mr. Within's outer and inner realmism. And so I've even created this podcast called the Inner Realms Podcast. I've decided to interview people on there. How beautiful is this world, that it gives and takes, so we realize that we are beyond both conditions. It's as if who will lead the armies of order in the future, and who will lead the armies of chaos. And it will be a leader that is neither chaotic or ordered. Which is another way of saying that some wars end when other dimensions, with the truths of other dimensions. It's as if nature is fighting for its place. Do you know, it's like emptiness and fullness are fighting to see which one is in the moment. Chaos suggests emptiness, order suggests fullness. The ability for us to organize the chaos
became our order. What else can I say? I thought about, like, what are the possibilities of reality, right? Either everything goes to the void, which means nothing. It started from nothing, it ends in nothing. Either we realize everything was singular, which means everything was singular from the beginning, is singular now, and will be singular. It will return to the singularity, to a singular moment. And then we could have this view that everything started from a dualistic position and will remain and returns to a dualistic position, which is closer to the secular perspective. And then we have, this is another view I've seen it in, where I'm like, what if it's infinite? That means, what if the simulation was how we thought we were a temporary being? Our true nature is the presence of the world, actually. Because I thought about it and I'm like, okay, am I going to die as a human being? Like, is the last thought in my mind going to be like, yo, I'm a human and it's all gone? Like, is that going to be the view? Or is the view going to be as if I'm a universal being? It's as if do you know what it is? It's as if mysticism is kind of like you living a life as a self, and then midway through the lifetime realizing that you're not that self, and you've been watching that self from a selfless state. And so it's like death would be like a universal being witnessing the dissolution or the integration of an individual being with itself. So to your mind, death is a union of, it's like the drop reaching the ocean, but to the body, it's like there's nothing there anymore. It's like just like there's rent-a-car, there's rent-a-karma. And we've all rented the periodic table for some time, the genetical program. And we're like, what do we do? Where do we drive around as a manifest entity in a world? What is the nature of this? Like, can we just consider that the species suddenly awakened to how it appeared out of nowhere and it named everything, and everybody was like, okay, I guess that's what it is. You know, we just put a bunch of letters and symbols on stuff and that's what it became. It's like that became a tree, and till the end of time people are going to be like, yo, that's a tree. You know, it's as if those letters became that object. Do you know? And language is a way of connecting two-dimensional symbolism to three-dimensional events. Two-dimensional static symbolism, like a two-dimensional photograph, for a three-dimensional event, dynamism, like a film. So knowledge is like people taking snapshots while they're being actors in a film. Do you know? And being like, yo, is this it? But the film goes on. So anyways, if there's any questions, feel free to ask. Somebody said something about the true nature. I tried to answer that in what I was saying earlier. And ultimately, we got to look at the situation and be like, okay, can we do something about it? If the answer is yes, then mind initiates probabilities and there's strategy. A strategy can be created. If you can't do anything, you wait for strategy. So if you're someone who doesn't know, as a being, I'm not talking about, because there's so many people better than me who could talk about culture and cultural success or societal success. For me, my vision is societal success, but on a global level. I pretty much realize that we have to, in our inner realms, already having the feeling that we deserve and are advanced beings. If we don't have this mentality, then it's as if like we weren't advanced from the beginning, you know? So, thank you for listening, guys. Share, subscribe, comment, like as a question for people to answer in in the comment section if they like to. Is pretty much what is your view on the idea of predestination and the predestination, the destiny of technology here? What do you think the destiny of technology is? Answer below, right in the comment section. Thank you for listening, guys. Blessings. Rise, mankind, rise.